about what one's trying to accomplish. And in my way of thinking about that, that involves clarity in the minds of the senior people in the company and an ability to communicate. I also think CSR is much more successful if it is less ad hoc and more aligned with some understanding, shared understanding of what the social and political goals in the country are. If you have that kind of shared understanding and it's communicated well, then everything comes into alignment. The people in the company who are also citizens, are aligned with the program. The program's aligned with some understanding of what the society is trying to accomplish, and so on. That, I think, is the ideal configuration for effective implementation.
And what are you thinking of are the main challenges for the management during the implementation of the CSR strategy?
Well, some of it really is just communication. It's making sure that everybody is on the same page. My impression is that when corporate social responsibility, which is a very important thing, got started, it was a little bit what I'll call ad hoc. It was lending for home purchases and other things to poorer communities, or it was environmental things, or it was so on. There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't give people a sense of there being real priorities. And so what you end up with is people are more or less enthusiastic depending on whether they think that thing is important or not. It could be anything. Avoiding cruelty to animals, it could be, the list is endless. There has to be some process, I think this is the hard part, whereby people come to understand that it isn't just what I get up and think in the morning, but some coherent collective choice that we've made. And I think that's the hardest part of implementation.
Do you think there are some differences in implementing the CSR strategy regarding the size of the company? In Germany we call it Mittelstand, the small companies, and we have the big companies, and there are some differences, I guess.
Well, I think their differences are huge. I mean, in a small company, first of all, you might have a large sounding agenda, but you can't implement it all. And so it's a sensible strategy to pick and choose, and then the communication problem becomes less. By pick and choose, I mean choose something that comes naturally. If it's a company that processes paper and makes fine paper, it would probably be an environmental thing, I would imagine. And so, but it's just simply easier. In the large company, you have the problems I talked about before. And I think what you end up doing is decentralizing. You give not just parts of the company, but groups of people who come together from various parts of the company the challenge of wasting less of this, and so on. And I think it's just much more difficult.
Porter and Kramer demands a strong relation between the social engagement of companies and its strategy. They expect action along the value chain of the companies and the field of its competition. Do you think it is necessary to create a win-win situation along the value chain? And is this value chain oriented theory the best way to create a win-win situation? And does it help to implement CSR in the best way possible?
Well, it certainly makes it easier to implement if there's an alignment between the corporate strategy as sort of narrowly defined by the company's function and its social goals, or corporate social responsibility goals. On the other hand, I don't believe that's the whole story. I believe there's a very important growing part of corporate responsibility, which I refer to as collective. And I'll use an example. I think the financial services industry was running sort of out of control. with the potential to do damage. It's very difficult for an individual firm to run against that, but collectively, they, where expertise resides, could come and say, look, this needs to be overseen and regulated in a different way. So I don't reject that notion at all, but I think there's other dimensions of social responsibility, particularly in the developing world.
My last question, which concrete output do you expect from this Congress, and what do you think are the valuable contribution for the daily business of CSR out of this Congress?
Well, it's my first time at this conference, although I gather it's been a great success and is growing every year. But I imagine that there are a great many people in government, in business especially, in the non-profit civil society organization world, who are trying to develop some sense of understanding of what the overall picture, what is corporate responsibility really, social responsibility really about. We all know examples of it, but how it fits into the scheme of things, how it relates to the sort of primary division of responsibility between government on the one hand and the private sector on the other, are things that people are wrestling with, and probably the biggest, or one of the biggest contributions the conference can make is just to help people think through that set of issues for themselves so that they feel grounded when they're actually undertaking the formulation and implementation of particular programs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Me too.
Thank you.